You know what no one thinks about when they're watching this movie that they should? They should be wondering, why is it that Candyman thinks he's such hot shit that you have to say his name 5 times?
That's great.
Or is it worse that everyone thinks that you have to say Candyman 3 times just to get him to appear like he's like Beetlejuice from the hood or something? I don't understand. Just so you know, though, in this entire episode, I will not be singing the Banana Boat song, so you can just go ahead and hit the music. Welcome to Half-Ass Movie Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Half-Ass Movie Podcast, a show where we put together a half-ass theme as an excuse to watch movies. My name is Adam Portress, and joining me today, he too knows as much about the supernatural as he does interior design. Sweet Sean Kovacs from the internet.
Why again are the ghosts going to Saturn?
You know, it's where you go. And Bruce isn't here because his life is just a big old dark room. One big dark room. He's out this week and everything, but we wish Bruce the best of luck. He'll be back here next week. Well, we got a big one coming next week, so I think you don't want to miss that one here. But Sean and I are back, and we are kicking it off, everybody. It's September, and we've got 5 weeks to kick out our brand new series here, Michael Keaton, and it's just before the sequel, so we're here today to check out the original 1988 Beetlejuice, directed by one Tim Burton. This is, I mean, come on, with Beetlejuice coming out, we figure, hey, let's go back to the original source, and then we'll jump into the brand new one, and then after that, we'll jump into other Keaton films and kind of dissect the career from there.
Yeah, and this is one of those movies too where I'm so glad we get to revisit Beetlejuice. This movie here, it's just it's so tight. You know, it's like an hour 30. It might be a little bit longer than that, but not really.
Not by much.
It's just there's no fat on them bones. It just goes, and it takes its audience like they don't think you're a dummy. You know, they don't explain everything away. I just love this movie so very much, and as I've said previously, and will continue to say, being a white nerd who is Gen X, you can't not love Michael Keaton. You have to love him. I mean, it's just the way that goes. And this is one of those movies where I don't know if it's overlooked. I kind of don't think it is at all. Actually, I think that it's looked over the right amount. But I think that this is one of those movies where you think that you think you like this movie, but you don't realize how much you love this movie, especially if you're a weird art kid like I was. Like this is the one of those movies that's just transitional for me, where I'm thinking like, oh, I like this movie way more than my friends do. And it's funny and it's bombastic, and it's in Beetlejuice. The name of the movie is Beetlejuice, even though he's only in it for 15 minutes.
Yeah. And
it's just perfect. And everybody is a killer in this movie. There's not like everybody who's in it is great. And you know, you've got Alec Baldwin looking like a perfume model in this movie. He's so good looking. It's impossible how good looking he is in this movie. He's so good looking that he makes Gina Davis look pretty normal, average lady, and she's freaking Gina Davis, for God's sake. You know what I mean? Like it is incredible. And Alec Baldwin, you know, I know that everybody thinks of Alec Baldwin as, you know, the guy that he is now because he's
I thought you were going to go, listen, everybody knows Alec Baldwin is the guy who shot the cinematographer and the director.
Well, I you know, that aside, like I want to take that part out, you know, like he wants you to know his political views constantly. Like, I don't care what you think, Alec. Let me just live my life, please.
Yeah.
I if I'm listening to you speak, I want to hear you talk about, you know, what it was like on Falcon Crest or whatever the hell show you were on. Like that's all I want to hear. Like I stop being in my face about your political views.
Who was your favorite president to save in a movie? You know,
exactly. Hey, Hey, how did you feel when they found out that because you couldn't do it, they replaced you with Harrison Ford? What was that like? What does that feel like?
It was the worst day of my life. I hated it.
So, like there's just so much that happened perfectly to create this movie. And Michael Keaton wasn't even the first choice for Beetlejuice. Like and then after they said no, because Tim Burton wanted to use Sammy Davis Jr. for Beetlejuice, which is so strange to me.
Who can take a sunrise? You want to see some snakes come out of my head, kid? Come on.
And for anybody who is 25 years old, they have no idea or under 25 years old, they have no idea who Sammy Davis Jr. is. I barely knew who Sammy Davis Jr. was when I was a kid.
He was the guitar player for the Killers, right?
I knew him as that weird old guy who held the golf tournament that they did 2 towns over from my house. That's who I knew that guy from. And he had a weird eye. And he seemed constantly drunk. I didn't know anything about the Rat Pack. I didn't know any of that stuff. So to have him as Beetlejuice, not the same movie for 13-year-old.
Now why is my Sammy Davis Jr. thought, like, whenever I think of Sammy Davis Jr., this is terrible. I think of Billy Crystal as Sammy Davis Jr.
Of course, though, because that's the era.
Yeah.
You think of Billy Crystal doing Sammy Davis Jr. more than you think of Sammy Davis Jr.
It's true.
It's like when people think of George Bush Sr., they think of Dana Carvey as George Bush Sr. more than they think of George Bush Sr. You know what I mean?
It's just you transcended it.
Right. It's just the way it works, man. And so, the fact that they finally end up with Michael Keaton, the only reason why Michael Keaton was considered for the role of Beetlejuice has nothing to do with Tim Burton. It's the suits at the studio are like, hey, how about Michael Keaton? That's how he became Beetlejuice. And then when they asked him to do it, he said no. Multiple times he said no, I didn't want to do it.
If you're handed this script,
sit down with Tim Burton in order to say yes to do it.
I mean, listen, if this came across your desk, though, you do look at this going, what is this?
Well, do you know the story of the script to this movie? Because I just learned this recently. So Beetlejuice comes to be because there's a script that happens after the first Ghostbusters movie. And so studios are basically like, oh, that's what people want to see now. They want to see Ghostbusters. So let's give us your
people are on the ghost train.
Script.
Let's get the ghosts going.
And it's a very different script. Like Beetlejuice is far meaner and a bit of a killer, and he's not a sexual deviant like he is in this movie. Like it's a bit of a different script, and it's not nearly as funny. It's not a comedy like this is. And so, it is a comedy, but it's not nearly as, I guess, silly a comedy as this is.
Yeah.
And so it goes through a bunch of rewrites. Everybody who they option the script, but everybody who reads the script hates it because it's so strange. Then Tim Burton gets his hands on it, and he brings in his guy to script doctor the script, and then we end up with Beetlejuice after several years. But the problem is, no one can see what's in Tim Burton's head because it's so crazy. And at the time, there's no thing to tell people, well, it's a Tim Burton movie, there is no Tim Burton movie to show people. There's just Pee-wee's Big Adventure. So nobody really knows how to describe it. So everybody hates the movie. Everybody who reads it hates it. Alec Baldwin hates it. Gina Davis hates it. No one understands what they're going for here. And it's only after a sit down with Tim Burton that Michael Keaton sort of understands what he's going for. And that's where you get that line, because Keaton says it in an interview where he's like, the way that the character was described to me by Tim Burton is that he's a man of all times and no time at all. And so once he figures that part out, he's like, oh, so then basically that's what this character is that he's not of any time at all. I'm the doctor.
Got it.
Right.
And that's what that is, really, if you think about it.
On the inside. Yeah, you're right. So he goes, so once Keaton signs on, then things start falling into place. And so one of the big hurdles for this movie is that production design is a very big part of Tim Burton's movies.
Oh, yeah.
And he can't get the production designer that he wants. Instead, he ends up with this guy, Bo Welsh, who is now, we know who Bo Welsh is now. Do you know who Bo Welsh is?
Yeah. He's a very
he's a
often
prolific production designer, and you can kind of tell when it's a Bo Welsh movie because his stuff is so like, oh, that's Bo Welsh who made that. And so he signs on for Beetlejuice, and they have this great working relationship, him and Tim Burton, which is surprising because from all interviews, no one knows what's going on in Tim Burton's head at this time because he's not good at explaining himself. You know, he's constantly staring at his shoes. He looks a little bit like the dude from The Cure, like all of these things, and people are like, this guy is weird.
It goes, it's strange and kooky, and they're like, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, yeah, cool. Ska colors, so, got it.
So that's your second thing. So you have Keaton come on, you get Bo Welsh on, and the third thing is the part that interests you the most, Adam, is that then they bring in Danny Elfman because it's a Tim Burton movie. You're going to bring in Danny Elfman, but Danny Elfman, without watching the movie, starts scoring the movie. And this is a big problem because the movie by script doesn't read the way the movie is. I've never read the script just to read the screenplay, but I would imagine that it doesn't. What's on the page looks nothing like what the movie looks like. I'm imagining.
Not at least originally, I would think.
So Danny Elfman has all this music that he makes for the soundtrack, and none of it works. And so once he watches the movie, he's like, oh, none of this is going to work. And so he basically decides that he's going to tell the story of Beetlejuice through the music, because when you think about it, that bombast Danny Elfman music that plays at the beginning of the movie is not at all the movie you're getting for the first half hour of the movie.
No, not at all.
But basically what he's trying to do, what Danny Elfman is trying to do, is signify to you, the audience, that this is the movie that this movie is going to end up being. We're just not there yet. And so, you know, when you get those helicopter shots of the New England town, of the fake Connecticut town that was actually shot in Vermont, like all of these things, that Danny Elfman music right now sounds right to our ears because we've been listening to Danny Elfman for 40 years now.
Yeah.
But at the time, it seemed weird to be listening to this bombast music as you're getting these like picturesque small New England town shots.
Yeah, it's just like, are these helicopter shots? Are these miniatures? We can't even tell half of the time, and it's just like
you see the scene. Yeah, you can find the seam if you've seen it enough, because I've seen it, and I'm like, there it goes. There's the change.
Yeah, but yeah, it is a little. It's that over the topness, and then it just kind of subsides, and then we kind of come back full force there and everything. But again, to him, just like him and Burton's just working relationship is certainly an interesting one over these many years.
The three of them, I think, and he doesn't end up using Bo Welsh for the first Batman movie. He ends up getting the guy that he wanted to get for his production designer for Beetlejuice on Batman. But then he goes back to Bo Welsh for Batman Returns, which makes sense when you watch Batman Returns, because you're like, this is very Tim Burton-y. Whereas Batman is Tim Burton-y, but not nearly as Tim Burton-y as Batman Returns.
No, absolutely. All right. Before we get into all this, though, we do want to say a giant thank you to People's Sports Show over at patreon.com/HMP. We get a pre-show, post-show, Dinger Zone. And let me tell you, Dinger Zone this week, hell of a show. Hell of a show. We talk we talk about our top five, just me and Sean. Bruce isn't even here. Just Sean and I talk our top five Tim Burton movies for damn near an hour. So
you know how I just went on for about 20 minutes about the big three when it comes to Tim Burton movies? Imagine that for a whole hour.
We do that.
If that interests you, that's the Dinger Zone this week.
So patreon.com/HMP. Join up at any level. Whatever this show means to you, put that in a dollar form, send it out our way, and realize that you don't need to sit there and listen to 45 minutes worth of ads on a show and everything for crap that you don't want to buy. Just throw a couple of pennies our way. We love you so very much. And again, If it's $1, think about this. It's $1 a month. That's a rounding error. That's falling out of your pocket into the seats of your car. Fish that little dollar out there. Throw it our way. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Patreon.com/HMP. And we shoot us an email at halfassmoviepod@gmail.com. I think I've been saying the email address wrong on the air, and I think that's why we perhaps have not been getting as many emails. That said, I do have an email this week, but we'll do it a little bit later just before we get to our final review there and everything, because it's in regards, of course, to today's movie, Beetlejuice. So let's get into it. Here's the IMDb plot line for Beetlejuice. As we know, IMDb always 100% correct in everything they say and or do. The spirits of a deceased couple are harassed by an unbearable family that has moved into their home and hire a malicious spirit to drive them out. Congratulations, IMDb. That is a very concise plot line. That's everything.
I would say that's the best plot line I've heard on an IMDb review.
For a while. It's been there. It's like like they don't get into too many specifics, but it
is succinct.
It's succinct. It tells you everything. It's one sentence. Not too shabby.
Excellent job, whomever you may be.
That must be somebody new. The story is by Larry Wilson. He would go on to work on The Addams Family with Tim Burton. Screenplay by Michael McDowell. He did many episodes actually of Tales from the Dark Side. He also co-wrote Nightmare Before Christmas and Thinner. And Warren Scarron, who wrote Beverly Hills Cop 2 and also wrote some Batman 89 as well. This is directed by Tim Burton. Of course, did a ton of shorts. Your Pee-wee's Big Adventure back in 1985, just before this. And of course, every Tim Burton movie after that. I don't know that I need to go through those films. You've seen them. You know what they are. This movie stars Alec Baldwin, Gina Davis, Catherine O'Hara, Jeffrey Jones, Glenn Shaddix, Dick Cavett, Robert Goulet, Winona Ryder, and of course, our subject for this month, Michael Keaton. So it's 1988, Sean. How old are you? When are you seeing this? Is this a movie that you see in the theater? Were you hyped about it? What was the expectations?
I did not watch this movie in the movie theater because 1988, Sean, it's not quite on my radar. It doesn't happen until it hits VHS, where it seems like me and my friends really start watching that movie. Like Pee-wee's Big Adventure was something you had to see in a movie theater. Beetlejuice was not, which was a mistake. I wish I would have seen it in the movie theater. I think that 88, I am 14. I'm 14 when this movie comes out. And it's one of those movies that it just seemed like they made great movies all the time in the 80s, like just over and over again. Like, yeah, you just go to the movie theater and you see one of the best movies you've ever seen. What's the big deal? You go to the video store, you pick up a movie that just came out on videotape and it's the best movie you've ever seen. I don't understand that. And maybe it's just the old man in me who's like, I don't like movies today. But back then, it seemed like this happened all the time. Where like, oh, there's this hidden gem called Beetlejuice. You know what I mean? Yeah. It happened all the time, and so that's how I saw it. I'm sure, but I don't remember if I said it on the main show or on the Patreon. But this is a very transformative movie for me, Beetlejuice. I seem to like this movie more than everybody I knew. I like that it's silly and funny and a little bit scary, and you can feel the hyper creativity just sparking off of this movie as you watch it, even today. And for as big a movie as this is, it still feels just so small and handmade and just perfect. And like I said at the top of the show, it is an athletic 130 minutes. Like you are, it's not 130 minutes, an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And it's just what it's like. It comes out of the gate immediately. The movie you're getting within 10 minutes. You know exactly what this movie is going to be. And it's just so pitch perfect. And everyone's throwing their best heat. I mean, Catherine O'Hara comes in from the top rope in this movie, and you're just like, well, this is her best performance ever, probably, right? and then and then you've got Alec Baldwin and you got Gina Davis doing great straight men work. Like they're the perfect straight people. Like you believe that they're good and pure, and all they want is to be left alone so that they can just enjoy their home in their little New England town. These things are great. And Winona Ryder, who is just so perfect in this role, and she basically does the same thing later in Edward Scissorhands. Um, Probably not so young though. I think of her as a little kid in this movie. I don't think of her as a little kid in Edward Scissorhands.
Yeah, she's like 15, 16 or something in this movie. Like in actual reality and stuff. And I by the time you get to Edward Scissorhands, again, I don't know the years, but she at least feels like she's 18-ish. She feels like a high school kid. And this is another, it felt like, your star-crossed lovers kind of deal.
Right. And she feels like almost like a young phenom in this movie. She feels like a naturalistic kid actor. I believe all the words that she says in this movie, which is difficult coming from a kid actor, especially in a Tim Burton movie.
I don't mean this by how she's moving or anything, but she's an athletic actor in this movie.
Yes,
she is. She embodies what this character is, and again, the choices that she's making at her age and stuff. And now granted, Burton's directing some of this, but some of it's clearly, I think, her choices and stuff that she's doing. Really effective, very naturalistic. And and for an odd character, that's a weird thing to say, but it absolutely works. And it's everything from the design of what she's doing to how she's interacting to how Burton frames her and stuff like that. I don't know how they put how the planets aligned as well as they did for that.
And it's so weird because when you see her as an adult now, like that first season of Stranger Things where she's just slappy in the face with her hammy acting, versus what she's doing in this movie as a kid, and it's night and day. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think she's perfectly suitable on Stranger Things, and I think that I'm glad that she got a career resurgence from that role. But man, she is something to behold in this movie. Whereas in Stranger Things, it's like
she feels like she's going to jump up and grab the boom mic and start chewing on it.
Really, I mean, it feels like she came off of a soap opera or something. Whereas this feels like it's a goth kid, but it's with heart. This is not the angry goth kid. This is the sad goth kid that we're looking at. It's a really great performance. And it's not the only one. It just happens over and over again in this movie where you're like, well, is this their best work? Is this the best thing they've ever done? It happens again and again. I think the only actor you can't say that about is Jeffrey Jones, unfortunately, because Jeffrey Jones is always going to be the principal in Ferris Bueller's Day Off to me. However,
if you take that role away, this role's pretty darn good.
It is, although he is also great in Amadeus. I mean, he's so good in that movie.
Well.
But this movie, he's totally good in, but it's the only performance where I'm not like, is this their best work? Is this the best thing they've ever done, acting wise? He's good in it. It's just you can't see Jeffrey Jones in a movie, man, without thinking man, it's a shame that guy's awful in real life.
Yeah.
It's just a shame.
Ugh.
He would have had such a long career playing this type of homunculus white man,
big old doofus,
put upon white man.
It's just we need to put somebody through the ringer. Get Jeffrey in here.
Exactly, because he plays it so well, and he's not even the comedy. He's not even the guy that they're hanging jokes off of. He's just a good presence to have in this movie, so that it doesn't seem like Lydia is just completely, just left to her own devices. Her dad actually does care about her, and that's a very interesting dynamic because in a later Tim Burton movie, I guarantee you that character isn't in the script.
Yeah.
Woe is me, my parents don't care. That's how that character would be now.
Glenn Shaddix, I didn't realize exactly where I was like, at first I'm like, wait a minute, where do I? Oh, yeah. Fantastic cameo on Seinfeld. He was the super.
Is he?
Yeah, it's like it's him, and he's got a little guy Manny, and Manny only speaks Spanish and stuff. And I'm fairly certain. I could be. I'm 99. I say that now. Like right now, I'm starting to question because you said the word really, and I was like, damn it, I better not be wrong.
Oh, I see. I see.
I was 99%. Now you're like, really? I'm like, no,
maybe
not now. I'm certain you'd be like, oh, but of course. That's a great cameo where he shows up and he's complaining to Kramer and stuff like that. And I think it's the 90s and stuff. So I don't think they said they were gay, but they always maybe insinuated him and the character were gay.
That Asian lady that's smoking right next to him is pretty explicitly saying that he's gay at the dinner table.
No. I'm talking in the Seinfeld episode.
Oh, on Seinfeld. Yeah, it's kind of
back then it was just like, oh,
yeah, on TV.
Aren't they gay? We're not here.
I also know him from Heathers. He's in Heathers. He plays a pretty big role in that, and that's another Winona Ryder movie. So I'm wondering if maybe he gets brought in because of her. Maybe, I don't know.
You never know. It don't hurt nothing, I don't think.
Sure.
So while watching this again, great understated Alec Baldwin performance from somebody that's a lot more showy than this normally.
It's funny, man, because I think of Alec Baldwin, I always think of him as like a lesser than actor, but when he's in the right thing, God, he's so perfect. Like, I mean, is 30 Rock nearly the show it is if he isn't in it? I don't think so.
He's a large component.
You got to have him in that movie or in that show, or otherwise it's not the same show. And I think the same thing with this movie. He's not, you're not hanging jokes off him. Like he's the straight man. He's the guy that like has to make Beetlejuice as believable a character as possible, which he's doing. Like he's really great in this. But my God, what a handsome man. Jesus, I can't get over how handsome that dude is.
He's so good looking. It's distracting. And
it hurts my eyes to look at him sometimes. That's how handsome he is.
And the funny part is like, I don't know how you ended up watching this. I ended up buying it off of Apple. It was like $5 and it was 4K and everything. The transfer looked fantastic. And so like it's like the transfer almost so good that you're just like, when was this shot? Like, how is Alec Baldwin looking this young in this movie? Because it was just like crazy. Same thing with Gina Davis, who I just saw in the Channing Tatum movie Blink Twice. And
so, how is she in that?
Well, her character is like a drunk and a crazy person. So like,
of course, because now that she's got some age on her, she just can't be a lady.
Yeah. And the funny part is like, and I didn't catch this bit, but she's playing Tatum's sister. I don't know how that works out.
Huh?
Yeah, I thought.
Oh, okay.
While the movie was going on, I was just like, that's clearly his mom, right? And then later on, they go sister. I'm just like, what bullshit are you peddling here? No.
Yeah, get out of here with that.
Like you being a little nicer. No, but she's really good in this as well.
She is. She's great. Also a stunner in this movie. She's so gorgeous in this movie. But she also, this is like the early signs of, Gina Davis can kick your ass, because she's the one who's in control of the two of them.
Oh yeah.
She's the one who punches the sandworm in the face so that they can get away. Like she is the one who has her shit together. It's not Alec Baldwin. Alec Baldwin is just like a really nice guy who loves his little model town. I think,
tell me what you think about this. I think Gina Davis did like a great kind of service, like early with The Fly and stuff with Jeff Goldblum, because that's somebody that you got to like really be able to kind of tango with, because Jeff's a force of nature, that guy and stuff. And they were dating at the time. And so but you have to have somebody that can kind of bounce off of that. And I would bet that relationship and that movie and everything helped kind of just strategize what's the word I'm looking for? But just put her up in that kind of spot to where she could have characters like this, where you were absolutely believable that she was kind of running the show.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing that I have been railing against for a million years on our dumb podcast, which is that you can't have 100-pound woman kick a 350-pound guy's ass. Like that does not work. That looks so stupid. You look like you don't know what you're doing when you make a movie like that. Gina Davis is not a 100-pound woman. Gina Davis could kick your ass in real life. Gina Davis was almost on the Olympic archery team because she's that good at archery. She's like she's physical. She is an athlete. Clearly, she is somebody who has such an expressive face, but such a normal like acting prowess. Like her acting is grounded, but her facial expressions say everything that she's wanting to say, so that you can go up against anybody. You can go up against Jeff Goldblum's The Fly. You can go up against Beetlejuice. You can go up against Madonna playing softball, and it works. All of it works because she is just a natural actor with an incredibly Bob Hope like expressive face. Where like when she is amazed by something, you don't find it like oh, okay.
You're not searching for what her thoughts are.
Right. It's not dull surprise on her face when she's acting. And it totally works for this kind of just weirdo movie.
But you never feel like she's dialing it up to over like an oversaturated point either, to where
that's what I mean. And that's what I mean when I say that she's a very naturalistic actress with just a super expressive face. So she can like put a foot in both lanes and it totally works.
Which people are, if we're honest with ourselves, that's how most people are. That's how most people are. They have varying degrees of their personality.
but actors aren't that way, man.
You're right. They're vacuous nothing people. We
know
you
like
actors.
There's nothing behind the eyes half the time. But with her, she's just like a person who's an actress who's beautiful and can do anything. You know what I mean? Like you can put her in a drama, she works. You can make her the president of the United States, you believe it. You can have her be a hired assassin, you believe it. You can make her a pirate, maybe not.
Indy car driver, perhaps not, but
probably not. But she's great, and she, like Tim Burton, had like this period of time where everything she did was awesome. Even right up to The Long Kiss Goodnight, which is the most underrated action movie ever made. Yeah. And she's amazing in it. And then she's just playing like a simple housewife in this movie. And she's also great in It. She's so good. She's so good.
Still staying in it. It's working. How many? 52. I would have figured a little bit more. 52 acting credits. I'd have figured maybe a little bit more, but good on her.
I would imagine that there's probably a couple of years where she had to take off. Like, after the flop of that pirate movie, she's probably like, you know what? I'm going to take a year off here.
I don't know. It looks fairly consistent.
Just really?
From a quick little swap there through. I didn't look super hard, but just to kind of year. Not too bad. Catherine O'Hara, we touched on her just half a second here, but boy, so good.
The only other person in this movie where like, if I didn't know that Michael Keaton was going to be bringing the pain and the heat with his performances, I would have been like, Catherine, you got to tone it down a little bit because you are absolutely stealing this movie.
Yeah.
Like she is so unbelievably good in this movie. Everything she does is like weird and quirky and funny, and she dials up the anger and then immediately shuts off to be sweet again within the span of like 3 seconds.
Yeah,
she's so good,
and she just has, like you said, because she has that ability to kind of go quiet and softer and there and everything. She's I think probably a much better actor than she ever gets credit for. I think everybody goes, oh, she's super funny, and she is. I think she's probably a much better dramatic actor than I think most people would probably suspect, but she doesn't do a ton of that stuff because she's darn good at the comedy.
Well, and it's kind of the problem with her when it comes to a dramatic role is that she has a face that's funny.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like she's just naturally funny. The second I see her, I want to start laughing.
You like seeing her
Because
irritated. That's a fun look. You know?
my God, like is anybody funnier when they're angry than her? She plays angry. She plays funny angry so well. And she's one of these people too who like she can play an idiot. She can play smart. She can play like she can do everything. And the thing that I didn't realize, I just read it when I was looking into this movie this week, is that she met her husband on the show because I did not know that she's married to Bo Welsh.
Yeah, that's crazy, isn't it?
It is crazy. I had no idea.
I love the part that, like, did you hear that more or less Burton was just like, hey, just go talk to her, man. He's like, I didn't even think I could do that. It's like, why? Me go talk to an actor? No. It's like, okay, maybe I'll go text it in the end and sure shoot. And I was like, that's not bad. Not too bad. So let's talk about that for half a second, because that's one of the things that while watching this, I was really kind of looking at, and I just really want to get your thoughts on just the production design of all of this, the whole damn thing. Because that's one thing that you can look at with Burton stuff is like the art direction is very specific and very Burton.
Yeah.
Just like what are your kind of overall thoughts and stuff? Because like, first of all, what would we call either one of these houses as far as like the interior and stuff goes? What are these designs pre and post conversion?
Well, I mean the original is just
Slop
American farmhouse. Like the way the house is originally is just like an American modern farmhouse. Like it's lovely. It's nice. It's what you would expect to see in like the farmland country of Connecticut. It's literally what it would look like. And there are people who definitely do kind of lean into we are living in a house in New England in the farmland of Connecticut. Like there are people who do that. And so that's basically what that is. But because it's Burton, also a lot of the furniture and a lot of the appliances are from the 50s and 60s, not what would actually have been in that house at the time, which is a nice touch, because it's the thing that you've been talking about since we started talking about Burton, which is that it's out of time. You know, like you can't look at a Burton house just like the normal people in the house before all the craziness happens. Just when, before they're dead, they're in the kitchen, they're in the dining room, and it just looks like it could be anywhere. It could be any time.
Yeah, it's like this looks like it could go anywhere between the 50s up until today. You just don't like save for technology stuff. It's like it could be anywhere. It could be any of that.
Because the technology is all over the place. Like literally, if you look around the house before they start gutting the place, it looks like the TVA, honestly, from Loki, because everything is from something else. Like that oven would never be with that stove, that microwave. I don't think there's a microwave in the kitchen because I was looking for one. But like the style of phone that they have, like just stuff like that. When you start looking around, like it's like, oh, this is all out of time. Like this is not.
Yeah.
None of this belongs. None of this technology belongs with each other, and it's done on purpose, which is really smart.
Because
and
it's
really
something
thoughtful.
that you look at and like I said, it is that auteur, unmistakable Tim Burtonness of it, that when you look at that, you know who did it. You know who did it. And if somebody else does it, you know who they're aping.
Right. And, there's not really that Burton kitsch that's happening in the house, which I was kind of surprised by, because I thought I remembered that that he really kitsched it up, that like 60s, like bachelor pad looking stuff that he likes to put into a lot of his work, but that's not here. It's not in their house.
And so what of the new place? Is some sort of modern
it's German expressionism, basically. I mean, that's where a lot of his stuff comes from. Even the Otherworld stuff is German expressionism, and like brutalist modernism and things like that. Like he loves things that are off center, and he loves things that are at angles, weird angles, like doorways that that don't look right. Like that's kind of his jam.
Yeah.
And it's always been his jam. Even Pee-wee's Big Adventure is like that. And it totally works for Burton, man. It's the kind of what makes him and Bo Wells work so well is that they can. It seems like these days they have a shorthand, but back then they were kind of working it out at the time. And I do miss the working it out phase because it was a little more subtle than what you're going to see in something stupid like the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory remake, you know?
And the thing is that it's like they're not afraid of taking weird chances.
Definitely not. But you know, I can't remember. I'm sorry I keep saying this, but we did speak for an hour. But I can't remember if we talked about it on the main show or on Patreon. But you know, he is so sure of that he is right in his choices, and it's so obvious when you're watching this movie that you know everything from what does the attic look like to the stop motion animation of the sand snake. That's all Burton. Burton knows what he wants that to look like, and he's right. I mean, that's the thing about it at this point in his career. He is absolutely right with everything. And because it's so different and it's so strange, but he knows what he wants it to look like. And it's not because he doesn't have that shorthand for his own visual style yet, because he's not there yet. I think that doesn't happen until after probably Batman Returns, where he's like, we'll just shortcut this. You know, we'll make it something Tim Burton-y.
Yeah.
You know,
it's like
to the point where
he's put a stamp on it and just kind of go like, there you go. Let's make that mine.
Right. You know, like look at something like Alice in Wonderland. You know, the thing that really kills that movie is that it's just so computer generated. Like nothing feels tactile and made with human hands, where Beetlejuice feels all made with human hands. And I'm not just talking about whether it's the special effects. I mean, like when it comes to like shot compositions, even like he would shortcut that these days, the what Saturn looks like, where it would just all be done on a computer. Whereas at the time, Saturn feels so small because they probably had to shoot it on a green screen. You know what I mean? And it just looks so much better because he's such a strange person, and it's just perfect.
And that was one of the interesting things with me, because the time that I grew up with this, like with Beetlejuice, like I was aware that Beetlejuice was obviously a character and stuff like that. I was a scaredy cat kid, so there was no way I was watching this. Like even as tame as this movie is, to be honest, even that, no bueno. But for me, a lot of my kind of knowledge and language of Beetlejuice and everything came from the animated cartoon, which, again, it's another wild and crazy time here in the 80s where we were just taking any kind of cinema product and turning it into a cartoon, be it Beetlejuice or Police Academy, Rambo. There's so many of those weird ones where you're just like, what a bizarre turn. But at least for me, it's kind of who Beetlejuice is, because for Beetlejuice, like you said, he's in this movie for less than 15 minutes, and he is the star of the Beetlejuice show, right? And we live in the kind of neither world and everything. Now, I'm not going to tell you a lot of the stuff because I ain't watched the show in forever and a day, but you got all of the crazy, wacky Tim Burton-ness of it, just like for 22 minutes an episode and stuff. And it, like the wild and crazy stuff, like your merry-go-round head and stuff with that you see in this stuff, like they just took it up to 1,000,000 degrees and everything. The costume changes and everything, like it was Beetlejuice all of the time. I remember liking it as a kid. I remember also getting the Blu-ray years and years ago when it came out, and it had a couple of the episode segments and stuff on that Blu-ray, and it's also on the Apple one that I just bought for like $5. So I'm going to go back and watch them.
Nice.
I'm going to go back and watch them between this one and the next one. So I'll talk about those next week. But I remember going back on the Blu-ray and like putting the first one in and watching it, and it was just like I was like, oh my God, were we dumb kids?
Yes. The answer is yes.
Were we like it felt like short bus kind of stuff, like real, like bad for cartoons even kind of thing.
But the thing that I know about the Beetlejuice cartoon versus your Police Academy cartoon, your Rambo cartoon, is that the Beetlejuice cartoon was massively successful. That it got multiple seasons. It has people who know the cartoon more than they know the movie.
And not for nothing, a lot of that I think also is very well attributed to Danny Elfman's score, which is just amazingly, fantastic. Because
so is the score in? That was my next question. Is the score in the cartoon?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the score, the font. I mean, it's weird how they make Beetlejuice in comparison to like Keaton and stuff. And I was watching, say for one or two scenes, but they're doing it for comedic effect in the movie. But in the cartoon, Beetlejuice is a little more pudgy.
Oh, is he?
I don't know why. He's got a little gut on him. Funny. I'm like, and I'm watching this, so I'm watching back. I'm just going, did Beetlejuice kind of have a little gut? Was he a little bit out of shape? And you're looking at him like, no. He does in like one scene because it's it's for a gag,
right?
But no, and I just thought that was kind of odd. That he's just kind of a little fat guy in the cartoon and stuff like that. Doesn't quite sound like Keaton or whatever, but like he's got great disgusting teeth and everything. And then, of course, there was probably like a little Ren and Stimpy kind of thing in there every now and then. It's just like, how kind of gross can we get for the kids and stuff like that? But I like the sandworms delved into the cartoon a whole bunch. That was like a big giant element of it and stuff. So when you go back, years later and then end up watching the movie, you're just like, where the hell is Beetlejuice? Should there be some Beetlejuice in your Beetlejuice movie if we're taking
it's
some
almost
stuff
a
from
half hour before you see him, and it's a commercial. He's shooting a commercial where he plays a cowboy, like used car salesman.
So let's talk about this for half a second because it's a bone of contention with me, at least. The whole Beetlegeist thing. What's the deal?
I think that probably originally that was how you spelled his name.
But just said Beetlejuice.
It's pronounced Beetlejuice, but I think that's how originally that's what they wanted his name to be spelled like.
Right.
It sounds to me, it feels to me, and no one's ever actually come out and said this. And I have you seen that documentary, the documentary for the recently deceased about Beetlejuice? Because I have not seen that yet.
No.
I'm going to watch it this week because I have time. So I'm going to watch that this week because I'm very interested in that. But it feels to me like it's like the studio wanted one thing, the movie makers wanted another thing, and so they just came to an agreement that this is how they'll do that. Because I know that Tim Burton wanted to call it Beetlejuice from the beginning, and the suits at the company didn't want that name. They're like, that name is ridiculous. It's such a weird name. You've got such a weird movie. They wanted to call it something very simple, like Ghosts in the House or something like that. Yeah. and so it sure feels like a compromise that, okay, we'll call the movie Beetlejuice, but instead of spelling it that way, we'll spell it like the way that it sounds. And, it'll be easier to remember because when you read that Beetlegeist spelling of his name, it's not as easy for kids to pick up that says Beetlejuice. That's my guess. I don't know fully, but that's my guess.
Yeah, it just sounds like they were just kind of like grasping at straws there, and they're just like, listen, no one's going to understand that this says Beetlejuice. I get that you want to do this, but you can't spell Sarah that way. You know what I'm saying?
Well, if you're naming the character after the star, which I think is what they're doing, especially with all of the strange, Saturn stuff, but I would imagine that Beetlejuice is probably, and also isn't that like the name of a demon also, I want to say. Anyway, it would make sense that, we'll just name it Beetlejuice spelled Juice, and then finally, Warner Brothers or whoever was finally like, you know what? Fine. Okay, fine. You win, Tim. You win. You can call your movie Beetlejuice.
Wouldn't it be great if in this new Beetlejuice, we get him like addressing that sort of thing? Like, didn't you used to be called Beetlegeist?
I don't want it addressed because they do bring that up in the movie, in the first movie here.
Yeah,
because they mispronounce his name.
There's a lot of things in this movie that just kind of happen on account of like that's where the story needs to go. Shut your mouth.
Yeah. Well, there's a ton also I didn't realize because I know that Tim Burton is a bit of a perfectionist. I'm kind of surprised to learn how much improvisation Michael Keaton did on Beetlejuice. Like it feels improv, yeah. but I know Tim Burton enough to know that he probably it might be the last time something was improvised in a Tim Burton movie.
I can't cut to this. So I mean, what about like the man of the hour here and everything with Keaton? What's it about? I mean, because like I said, less than 15 minutes worth of screen time in here. He's the title character. What gives?
He destroys. He is by far the best part of an ensemble cast that everyone is doing their best work, and it doesn't matter because Michael Keaton comes in and absolutely takes the movie from everyone. And it's not even close. And he is perfect, even though, like, at this point now, basically the only way you could describe his character is that he's Beetlejuice-like. Like, there's no other character. Like, if you're doing something after this, that character is a little bit like Beetlejuice. There's nothing before it. He absolutely destroys. He the commercial that I mentioned earlier, where he's the used car cowboy salesman.
I love that. Yeah.
That is so goddamn funny. That is so goddamn funny.
Well, I'll tell you what, there.
And you can't even understand what he's saying half the time. Like I mean, I know now because I've seen the movie enough. Everything he says to everybody in that movie, but you can't do it in one viewing. You don't know everything he says because a lot of stuff is under his breath. He uses the F word to describe the model, which I caught maybe the last time I saw it, not this time this week. But I was like, Beetlejuice just threw the F word out there.
One of the few PG movies that got away with a single F bomb.
Well, it's because it's hard to understand what he's saying half the time because he talks under his breath a lot, and like he's basically talking in front of your back as he's talking to you sometimes. Like he's talking shit and he says it under his breath, so a lot of people don't understand what he just said. It's just he is the absolute best. Like he is after like I know that everybody loves him as Batman. I know. I get it. He's great as Batman. But God damn it, this is Michael Keaton's best role. It's not even close to me. I think that if you put him in for more, it's less. But the fact that it's 15 minutes of him going whole hog on everybody in this movie, and like he is such a force of nature, and that's how they play him. They play him like a force of nature, where they're like, oh, we got to lock him up. We got to lock him back up. It's so perfect. And he's so good at it. And he even does the thing that I love to see with comedians. And I know that he was a stand-up comic, but he wasn't a stand-up comic for very long, and he wasn't very good. But he does the thing that comedic actors, when they're really great, are doing a great job. And it's the thing where he's like, it's the scene where he's like, and I've seen The Exorcist 127 times, and it just keeps getting funnier. Like that part, know. But the first part of that is he goes from this really bombastic, like, hoo, ha, hey, ho, hey, Beetlejuice, and then when they're like, well, can we see your credentials? And he stops on a dime and he goes in a very erudite voice.
I studied Juilliard.
Well, I did study at Juilliard. Like it's just so perfect.
And I'll say this, the cartoon took a lot of, like, while it's not doing a Keaton per se, like the personality of Beetlejuice that was, that Keaton clearly brought to the character here and everything. Because like you said, the majority of these lines and stuff are improv or whatever. A lot of that sentiment really got brought over to the cartoon, like you said, with the commercial. him changing costumes and characters and stuff like that. They dug into that a whole bunch more and everything. So they really took, a lot of the cool elements and stuff like this and, put it into a cartoon form for kids that, at least for me at the time, worked.
I like how disgusting he is too. Like, he's really gross.
Yeah.
Like I know everybody loves the part where he opens up his jacket pocket and he spits in it and he's like, I'm going to save that for later. Like, that's a very,
that does not seem like something that was written by someone else. That's some crap.
It is a very Michael Keaton line for sure. But like, he's just gross, period. Everything he does is gross. Like he's sitting on that couch and he starts rubbing the cut in half lady's legs. She's like, hey, stop it. Sorry, I didn't see you sitting there.
Yeah, he's just kind of a roaming scumbag.
He's just so scummy, and it's just great. And he's having the time of his life. And it's just the best. I love this movie so much, and Michael Keaton is the best part of this movie. What do you think of him in this movie? Do you like him in this?
I think he's fine. Like, I will say this. I have not over the years been the biggest fan of this movie. I don't dislike it. I don't hate it by any stretch of the imagination. I just think it is certainly of its particular time and is okay. I think he's fine in it. But again, it's just like there's not a ton for him to do. And like the entire movie itself feels like a lot of interesting, well, maybe not interesting, I don't know if that's even the right word, but a lot of sketches, for lack of a better term, just kind of parsed out within the entire thing. There's scenes, if you will, of this, that, and the other, and they're fine, but the story itself it's blocky. It's just like I said previously, there's a lot of like, this is happening because that's what needs to happen to make this story go. So shut up and we just kind of go with it. But it's a dreamlike reality, and like a lot of Tim Burton stuff thing is where you're just kind of, flowing along as the tide takes you there and everything. And if you can grasp along to that tide, you're fine with it. But if not, sometimes it can just hit you wrong. And it hit me wrong for many years. I will say upon this viewing, I want to watch this movie a couple more times to kind of give it its due. I don't know that
if I may cut in for a second, you are completely entitled to your opinion, even though it's wrong, and you should fucking feel bad.
Well, I feel bad, but not for that. The thing that I really love, the thing, because it's not, to me, it's not set up like sketches. The way that this script works when it comes to Beetlejuice is it's literally, you do not want to unlock that door. Well, we have to unlock that door because we have this huge problem that we ourselves can't fix, and this guy can probably fix it. Right, but then that problem's going to be bigger than the problem that you're trying to fix. Like these are the things that make it work so well. And to me, having him be the force of nature. I mean, he really is like this massive tornado when he comes in anywhere, and you can feel it. Like there's so much happening when he's on screen that like it really feels like he did like all of the cocaine before they started shooting. Doesn't it feel that way to you? Listen, if there was some illicit drug use on this set, I would not be overly surprised.
It's 1988, so maybe. I mean, we're at that pivot point of like, are you still, doing a Stephen King movie in Wilmington? No, but you're close. Like you're 3 years removed from that.
We're starting to get into a like AIDS is starting to become a thing,
Yeah.
And but Coke is probably still there a little bit, because Coke probably went on a little past the AIDS, I would think.
I think so. But like he is, I couldn't believe how fast he is in this movie too. Like he moves fast, like he speaks fast, he moves fast. He does a lot. He's very physical in this role, which you don't see a lot of from Keaton. Even as Batman, he's not that physical. Mm-hmm. And I just enjoy the hell out of the performance. And having him be the locked door, that you need to unlock this door to bring him in. Now we need to get him back in the locked door. How do we do that? Mm-hmm. To me, that's the fun and games of this movie, is that like we need to get him back in here. Like when they keep trying to say his name 3 times so he can go away again, and he stops everybody at the like. It's just so good, man. God, it's good.
Let's get to a we haven't done this in a hot minute, but let's go to the mailbag.
Yeah.
Bale's here.
This one comes to us from our buddy Noah. Noah writes to us, "Hey guys, just want to send you a note on this coming week's episode, Beetlejuice. We're also covering over on the How We Sees It podcast in preparation for its sequel, so I figured I would write in with some thoughts. First off, was this movie good or just good for its time? Does it really hold up as an enjoyable rewatch or just one of those funny dance number scenes? Was it difficult to see Jeffrey Jones as anyone other than Ed Rooney? I think we talked about that for sure, especially after watching Ferris Bueller's Day Off so recently. Lastly, was it just me or was Catherine O'Hara kind of hot? She's a crazy in a she crazy but hot kind of way, or is it just seeing just seeing an adult rather than as a teenager? Well, I think there's probably a little column A, column B. Anyways, keep up the great work on the podcast, which is my go-to of Monday morning listen. Noah of the Dark Woods, co-host of the How We Sees It podcast.
Noah, to answer your first question, it is impossible for me to know if this is something that's just great for the time or if it's still great today. I can tell you that I watched it with as much enthusiasm yesterday on the plane ride back to Atlanta as I did 5 years ago, as I did when I first saw it. For me, this movie is it's such a hallmark of my movie watching experience. It's one of the things that made me realize that I'm weirder than most people, because I loved it so much when I saw it. So for me, I can't answer that question for you. I can tell you that I think that it holds up, but it holds up in a way of like, this is from a different time of movie making. Other than, it doesn't look like a modern movie. And for me, that's a benefit of the movie. What do you think, Adam?
Let me take those rose-colored glasses off you for a little bit because I think they need some polishing. No, this movie, it is good, but I do believe it is certainly of a time. There's at least the good portion of this, like I said, that has that Tim Burton out of timeness that does help curry this in its favor. So I think that's definitely a good thing that works for it. But yeah, I think that this is certainly an of its time thing. And as much as Tim Burton screams out from this thing in every way, I don't know that this is necessarily him at, the peak of all of this. I don't think he's quite there just yet. And I'm interested. I will say this, after this kind of rewatching, I like Beetlejuice every time I see it a little bit more. It's not a movie that I've gone back to, several times over or anything. But every time I do watch it, I like it a little bit more. And this time it did kind of like give me like okay, I don't know what they're going to do. I have zero expectations for what this sequel is, but at least there's a part of me that wants to see what this gang is going to do this many years later. So at least to a degree, and seeing, again, knowing that Beetlejuice was in this movie for less than 15 minutes and they're going to do somewhat similar, as is my understanding, in the next Beetlejuice film, that's got me at least intrigued as to what avenue that we're going to go down. Because Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis, not in this, of course, but I'm curious. And again, not knowing anything is the greatest gift of all.
Yeah, I literally
I don't know shit about this thing.
I
really don't.
Have not watched a single trailer.
Nope.
Beetlejuice.
Nothing. I know nothing. And so like at least there's an element of that's fun to me for what's kind of coming up here and everything. And I oddly enough, my high watermark for Beetlejuice is just Beetlejuice. And I know that's, will be different for different people. But for me, it's not the highest in the world. But like, I wanted to at least meet this particular level. And for me, that's not the super highest. So perhaps I might like Beetlejuice. I don't know.
I can't imagine that it's going to match it just because he's not the same kind of filmmaker. And Michael Keaton isn't the same level of performer anymore.
No,
He's an
we're
older
all
guy.
very different people, 30 plus years later. Winona Ryder looks like an old version of herself. Like I don't mean that. Like I know.
Well, I got news for you.
We
sir.
all
She
do.
is.
We're all older versions of ourselves. I know that's some dumb shit I'm saying here, but it looks like she's been in like the dryer and it's just shrunk and been that entire size the whole time, and she never got to full adulthood or something. I don't know. You've seen the pictures of her at the thing. She I don't know. That's all I could say. That's all. She looks like she's dressing up like the character. I'm like, what the hell's going on here, my man?
So Noah, to answer your first question, like I cannot look at this movie any other way than just for how much I love it. It was so I'm so in the bag for it that I can't tell you whether it is, but I think Adam's probably a better marker for that. To answer your next question, is it just you, or is Catherine O'Hara kind of hot in this movie? She ain't kind of hot. She's just plain old original flavored hot in this movie. She's kind of crazy in it, which I have a history of that in the past.
Yep.
But she's gorgeous in this movie, and the fact that she comes from basically the Gilda Radner school of like, I am a pretty girl, but I have to hide it so people think I'm funny, is kind of the way that she lived forever. So for her to kind of be able to like hot it up a bit for a movie is kind of interesting. And she does in this movie. I mean, they do give her the crazy hair on the side of her face, but like, she's just a gorgeous lady in this
Which was the style at the time.
No, it never was.
No, none of this. Nothing in this movie was the style of anyone's time ever. It's of Tim Burton's time. Let's be honest. Come on. There's no human being that just goes like, you know what? I'm going to walk into work today looking like that.
Exactly. Yeah, she's just gorgeous in this movie, and I think that because of we live in a different time now where you can be just like a super hot lady and tell jokes, and people are like, oh, that funny lady is also hot.
Yeah.
Like that's not a big deal anymore. But during the time of her coming up through Second City, that was not the case. You could not be a hot lady and be funny at the same time. It's not her fault. It's society's fault. But that's basically what she and Gilda Radner had to do.
So very good. Let's close up the mailbag.
Bale's here.
And again, if you want to send us an email, I'll give you the correct email address, halfassmoviepod@gmail.com. And I'll actually put in the show notes and stuff this week so we actually link the correct darn thing.
There you go.
Well, let's get down to it. Well, a couple quick questions here. Michael Keaton, we're on Michael Keaton. I think I know your answer to this particular question, but could there be anyone else other than Michael Keaton who could inhabit said Beetlejuice role?
Not only do I not think anyone can do it, but I'm trying to think of somebody who is the equivalent to Michael Keaton's career at this time, because Michael Keaton is a comedic actor during this phase of his career, and he is not yet a household name. Like he doesn't become a household name until Batman, where like even my parents know who Michael Keaton is at that point. But before Batman, he's basically a comedic actor who's in some big comedies. I mean, Mr. Mom was a huge hit. Night Shift is a huge hit. Gung Ho is a huge hit. But I don't know if everyone in America knows who he is at that point. And I can't think of an equivalent career to where he is at his career during this point in Beetlejuice. Like at any time, like modern equivalent. I can't think of anyone. Can you think of somebody?
No, it's been an interesting career for this guy. And you're right. This one is such a kind of singular performance and stuff. If you put another person in that role, I don't know if it's quite the right thing. I'm just trying to think of like, it's tough to think of who.
Holy shit! I just thought of something.
What age at this time?
I just thought of something. You know, the closest we get to this character is the character of Drop Dead Fred.
Oh yeah.
He's the closest we get to Beetlejuice. And that is not a good movie.
No, that was a movie that like I remember, and I think all the '90s kids remember seeing the trailer for Drop Dead Fred a million times because it was, I don't know how, but it was just something that just got played a whole bunch, and then like nobody saw it, or the people that did saw it thought it sucked. But then nowadays, there's a handful of people who really like that movie. We call them insane people. So.
But I mean, it's the same style of performance where you have somebody coming in from the top rope on purpose, who's supposed to be this bombastic personality who is like, a tornado.
Oh, I think I put it together.
Huh.
The answer you're looking for, and I think we're almost at the damn near. I'd have to look up the actual dates here and whatnot. But your answer for this is one, Howie Mandel.
Oh, wow. You know what? Howie Mandel could have totally done this role.
I
don't think it would have been as good.
It's not the same.
But he could totally have done it. You're absolutely at that time. Howie Mandel could have totally done it. You're right.
That's the only other person I think that could come close to it. It's not the same thing, but at least it would have a vibe.
And it wouldn't be as good, but he could do it. They could still make the movie if it was Howie Mandel. Absolutely, that's a perfect choice, Adam.
I don't know how I pulled that one out, but it was just like it was
that's
roaming
really
around
good.
there, and I'm like, And and another guy that do cartoons, so it all comes full circle.
True, and has a weirdly like his career is kind of like Michael Keaton's in that he did a lot of serious roles for a while.
Mm-hmm.
He's the funny guy on St. Elsewhere, but he did a lot of serious stuff on that show too.
Underrated.
Oh, wow. That's a really good choice, Adam. Good job by you.
Well, now we got to get down to our final question. Is this movie, movies only come in two forms, people. I don't know if you know that. They're either art or fart. Sean, where does Beetlejuice from 1988 fall for you? Art?
Well, come on, man. I think that this is, not only is this art, this movie made me want to know more about art. I wanted to know how it worked. Why does this movie look so weird? Why is this movie funny and gross at the exact same time? How does that work? Like, there's a lot about this movie that made me who I am. And so for me, it is art all day long.
Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if you know this, if you've been around this show for a long enough period of time, but there was a time where Sean and I did the show in the same room. And I'm glad that that's not the moment right now, because I have to go ever so slight to a fart on this movie.
I understand that you don't like it as it's kind of impossible for somebody to like this movie more than me, just because I have so much wrapped up of my own shit in it. So I do understand that.
And I get why people like it. I do understand it. It's not necessarily for me, but like it is what it is. It's like, to me, this feels like a great Tim Burton sketch pad, right? Like I found Tim Burton sketch pad that's got like a lot of cool ideas and stuff in it and everything. But they were like, let's do this as a movie. And I'm like, well, don't we want to do a little something? They're like, no, we're doing this. The best car chase, the best bridge death you'll ever see on film, ever captured. At this point, I'm going to be honest with you. I think those people deserve to die. We didn't need those sons of bitches going in there dying in like 8 feet of water. What the hell is that?
I do have to say that is a pretty poor accident scene. Although I do love that the dog is holding them up.
That was amazing. I gotta say, I love that the fact that the fulcrum of the dog, the 8-pound dog, is holding this whole damn car up. They see it. The dog walks away, and these dumbasses drowned in 10 feet of water. It's the stupidest thing I've ever seen, but somehow I do love it because it is quite that dumb.
You're not going to hurt my feelings by not liking it. I understand this movie isn't for everybody. I really do. And I don't know if I would feel the same way if it weren't Michael Keaton, if I didn't see it at the perfect time.
Yeah.
If I didn't realize that I was the weird art kid because of this movie, this isn't the genesis of that, but this is the thing where I'm like, this is like, part of the steps of knowing that, of like, I think I might be weirder than other kids.
Yeah.
Like, this is the movie.
Well, that is it, everybody. We got the first one in their can for our new series, Michael Keaton, and we're going 360 degrees with our pick. So normally you say 180. We are actually going 360 as we're headed out to the cinema to see if it was a good idea to revisit this film some 36 years later with a sequel. I mean, we do it all the time, but do we do it as well as we do it all the other times in this movie? Oh, wait, no, we don't do it. We do it terribly all the time? No, maybe
Yeah,
so.
it's pretty rare where the sequel, the 40-year later sequel is better.
History always says it's better. So join us next week when we check out the latest film from Michael Keaton and Tim Burton, Beetlejuice. The movie's so nice they named it twice, I believe, is how they are selling that to the public. That's not. I just made that up. But Sean, until next week, where can we find other things of ours on the internet?
You know, I've got a new show that's going to be coming up pretty soon. I have been out of town for a lot of this last month, so I haven't been able to work on it very much, but I have a Patreon exclusive show that's going to be dropping fairly soon called Shawnzy Like Spaceships, where each week I review some sci-fi movie that I'm hoping is a little gem of a movie.
Gem it up, man. So you're watching Gem and the Holograms is what I just heard?
If it were a good sci-fi movie or hopefully a good sci-fi movie, it would be part of it. But that movie, not a sci-fi.
That falls
movie.
under hard sci-fi. So perhaps it's not right for your show. I get it.
Probably not. Probably not.
So check all that out, everybody, and it's going to be a good time here on the old Michael Keaton month, I believe. And
I believe we're going to have a good time. At least I will. I will very much enjoy all of the movies we're seeing this month.
So we will get into all of that good stuff next week. For the absent Bruce Leslie, Sweet Sean's Kovacs from the internet, I'm Adam Porters, reminding you that the only difference between art and fart is an F.